Here on the Creative Thinker Podcast, we discuss all theories, philosophy, and thought behind the creative process. And we hope that you find some inspiration along the way.
Hello and welcome to the Creative Thinker Podcast. My name is Henry Moon and I am joined by
Michael Vasquez.
We're back. We're back, baby.
Yes, we are back. We've been on a little bit of a hiatus. What has it been, like a month and a half at this point?
Yeah, we took October off.
Yeah, we took the spooky season off. We did all our spooky episodes earlier in the year, so go back and listen to our zombie episode, our Halloween-y kind of episodes, our horror episodes. If you
missed us,
yeah, if you missed it, go back and we should have tried to shout those out, during the spooky season.
Hey,
but
we missed it. That close.
Yeah.
Almost professional. Anyway, we're back.
Yeah. There's been a lot of interesting stuff. I've been away. Got to go help coach a kickboxing tournament with one of my coaches. Shout out to Bailey Kickboxing Academy. We had 3 fighters competing. Unfortunately, we had 2 losses, but we did have 1 amazing knockout win. So it was a fun time, but that was my only days off in the last 3 weeks. So could not get a chance to record. Plus a little bit of sickness.
Yeah, I work with kids, so I got well up with sickness there for about 3 weeks.
Yeah.
But we're back once again,
Yes.
and it gave me a great opportunity to watch a show called Scavenger's Reign on HBO, which inspired this episode, which is about flora. Using flora to spice up your fiction. And for those of you plebes out there, that just means plants. So there you go. Scavenger's Reign is a really cool show, and it has so many different interesting uses of plants and animals. It's strange from one end to the other. They're on a planet out in space somewhere. It's sci-fi. It follows a crew of damaged deep space freighter who are stranded on a beautiful but dangerous planet. I don't know if beautiful, I mean, they animate it well, but don't watch it while you're eating is all I'm saying. But it's so interesting that I got wrapped up into that while I was sick, and it's a cool show. Check it out. But that interesting use of plants inspired this episode where we're going to be talking about plants.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I have, we're going to be talking about a little bit of real world plants, some fantasy plants towards the later part of the episode. But I'm excited. I've created some plants for my homebrew world of Dungeons and Dragons. I have some plants that I've added in there just to create a little bit more of an experience to the players, so that whenever they're like, I want to harvest something, and be like, this is what you're harvesting, and then they can keep a lookout on that. So
I ran a whole campaign when we were in Alaska with a friend. It was just myconid creatures, so it was all little mushroom people.
Yeah.
And it was sort of a cross between D&D and the first Avatar movie, the Blue People, not the Airbender. Where they just can sort of tap into the mother tree, but for them it was like the mother mushroom, and they were
that's cool.
saving the mother mushroom, and it's we ran into all kinds of other forest creatures and things that were their size, right? Mm-hmm. It actually ended up being a fun little campaign, but I want to make sure we have a good base to start our imagination off for this episode, because it's all about putting things into your world, right? So I just want to give a quick rundown, not that quick because there's a lot of things, but just a rundown of what plants there are and where you can start for things that you want to spice up your world with. And since I'm saying spice,
starting off first, we got
herbs.
We're talking about mint, parsley. We're not going to go through the list of every herb or any of these types of plants. We're just going to list a couple. I know, right? We're just going to list a couple of the ones that came to mind when we were creating this list. So herbs, we got some mint, parsley, and dill.
Next up, we got shrubs.
Talking about rose, lemon, henna. So I'm not a shrub person.
You don't like any shrubs?
I mean,
I feel like you got shrubs at your house. Do you have shrubs at your house?
I don't do the gardening at my house.
Dang, bougie. Okay. It's like that. Next up, we got trees.
What are trees?
Yeah, I don't think anybody probably knows. So for anybody outside of the U.S., no, I'm just kidding.
Where they all have way more trees than we do in the U.S.
Yeah, so trees are trees. This one's obvious.
Yeah, it is obvious. But one of the cool things I like about trees, so I follow another tabletop role playing kind of company. They deal with furniture, Wormwood Gaming. They deal with like tabletop RPG accessories. They deal with a lot of furniture and stuff, and they have a series called Worm Life on YouTube. And you kind of follow. It started off as like a day-to-day thing where you could follow the stuff that they're doing, and they kind of hype up what the process is for their company. And one of the things that I have enjoyed the most is seeing like the woodworking aspect of it, but also seeing different types of trees and or different types of woods and how they react, and how the way that you work on wood is different depending on the type of wood. And I thought that was very interesting. Because some woods they say it's harder, and that's why it's more expensive. It's a lot harder to handle, or might warp, or might not have a consistent pattern all the way through. So it was really interesting to hear some of the trees. And they just recently, I know this is off on a little tangent, but
I love it.
There's like this company out there that has that got access to these ancient trees that were underneath like the ice caps or whatever, not ice caps, but like they were preserved. And so they're like thousands of years old, and the people at Walmart got like, a hefty chunk of wood that they're making very limited, very expensive pieces of RPG accessories. And so I thought that was pretty cool. And it's just, it's fun. Once you kind of like go into the niche of plants and trees and stuff, there's a lot of really, really cool stuff.
And that's real world stuff. You know what I mean? We're not even into the fiction yet, where we feel like it gets a little spicy, but really, I mean, that's why we're starting off with real world stuff. It's like a lot of what exists right now in our world. Is awesome.
Exactly.
So after cheese, you didn't know cheese was a plant?
After
there is mold, I guess. I don't know. Moving on. Yeah. We got creepers next.
So you tell me what a creeper is.
A creeper is something that creeps along the ground. It's like a ground vine, more or less, if you want to think of it that way. But it's watermelons, sweet potatoes, or pumpkins.
Oh.
Yeah, any of that ground stuff. I tried to grow watermelons when I was a kid.
Yeah?
And when they got about the size of a fist, my dog thought that they were tennis balls. And so it just...
rough.
Yep. Came outside to a massacre. Anyway, after creepers, we got climbers.
Talking about grapevines, beanstalks, or any type of vine that kind of, I assume, climbs up things.
Yeah. Think your climbers. Think your vines.
Nice.
And then down here, we have sort of the...
they can't see what we're looking at.
That's so true. Further down on the page, though, just imagine it.
Yeah. Imagine our Google Docs document.
Something that everybody wants to do when they're listening to a podcast is imagine a spreadsheet. And I want to get a good, clear image in your mind.
Yeah, for sure.
Just whatever you hate about Excel, that's what we're doing here. Okay, so down here on the page, we have the less abundant plant types. Mm-hmm. And, well, that's wrong to say because moss and algae are in here. Moving on. Different, smaller types. How about that?
We're not always factually accurate.
But moss, okay, anyway, yeah. Not factually accurate. Moving on. Algae, mostly found in bodies of water, with some varieties also being carnivorous. I thought that was an interesting fact. Because there's just all kinds of algae in the ocean. But apparently...
they eat fish?
Yeah, they'll just... Well, they're not that big, but they're like a couple of cells maybe.
Uh-huh.
I don't know science. Anyway, it said that they chase down like small beings in the ocean.
I can't spell algae.
Was it like fish?
Algae.
Maybe krill?
Krill.
Just
Krillin?
small stuff. But they're out there eating shit. Mm-hmm. But they also use photosynthesis, and that is why they're classified as algae, even though they're sentient in the way that animals can be. Anyway, so that's algae. Mm-hmm. That's a lot of made up facts about algae. And then, are you looking up stuff about algae right now?
I am. It just really intrigued me. Hey,
It's
research
weird.
on the episode. We know that fish eat plankton and plankton eat algae. What? Think again, says research, who has spotted a form of algae so ferocious that they can overpower animals 10,000 times their own size.
Which is probably like half an inch.
Science Nordic. Yeah, you're right.
That's
Cool.
really cool. Yeah, I didn't know that till today. So anyway, that's algae, and again on this planet, no fictionalization yet.
Yeah, little algae eating things from the inside out.
Yes,
Wild.
gross. The next one is moss, and this one I feel like they use in TV shows a lot that are supposed to be like the world against people kind of shows lately, where it's just moss shooting out spores and the spores kill people or they take over their bodies or whatever it happens to be. Make the zombies from The Last of Us, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that the last one was a fictionalization. I just want to make that clear.
Yeah.
After moss, we have ferns, leafy plants without fruits or seeds, according to Wikipedia. The the research place for all learned people. And then we have liverworts right there at the end.
So what is a liverwort? Because I've heard people say that, and I have no idea.
See, I had to look it up too because I haven't heard of those in a long time. And I thought that they were like big, like romaine lettuce kind of stuff because I'm an idiot. But liverworts are apparently very small, like a few millimeters across, like spherical, like hair-like structured plants.
Oh.
Yeah, they're the little guys.
The little ones. A small flowerless green plant with a leaf-like stem or lobed leaves, occurring in moist habitats. Liverworts lack true roots and reproduce by means of spores released from capsules, according to dictionary.com.
Nice. So those are liverworts. So that's kind of the range you can pick from if you are trying to start hemming yourself in to create a plant that you want in your world, right? A lot of times people don't create like a whole host of plants for their story.
Yeah.
They just pull together like 4 or 5 and then that's like enough for their world. But yeah, these are things that you can pick from. Herbs, shrubs, trees, creepers, climbers, algae, moss, ferns, and liverworts. That gets you in the ballpark. So take your seat and we'll learn you some more. So moving on from that, we have really cool plants that I found. So doing the research for this, you get the same ads you get doing anything else. And I started seeing some for these plants upcoming that I was like, there's no way that's a real plant. Which, of course, clickbait being what it is, of course, there's no way. But I'm that guy. So I clicked on it and I found some real weird stuff. You're going to have to look these up at home, but I can throw pictures on for anybody watching on Spotify. So
Or YouTube.
The carnivorous plants like the Venus flytrap and the pitcher plant, we know. We know those. Everybody's like, ooh, that's so cool. Okay.
I mean, it is really cool to see it in action.
We had one at the last place I worked.
Yeah.
And we'd like take flies over and like, like dead ones that were like recently, you don't want to give it a dry bug. That's not fair.
Yeah.
Anyway, and it would close around it and do the whole thing. It was super cool. Anyway, so the ones that are less known go from here on. So the corpse plant. Who's heard of the corpse plant? Have you?
I actually have heard of the corpse
You
plant.
son of a bitch. You
But
set me
I
up.
don't remember what it is. I know there is such thing as a corpse plant, but no, I don't know what it is.
So it's the world's biggest plant. Or biggest flower. Sorry, biggest flower.
Wait. Hold on. Corpse plant.
It's the biggest flower. They can be up to 10 feet tall. And I read somewhere that it was 3 feet across the flowers when they bloom. But the cool thing is they only bloom once every 40 years.
Holy smokes.
And it's for only 4 days.
Wow.
So anyone that you see blooming, I mean, that's like,
That's rare.
yeah, it's pretty cool, right?
That is really cool. The corpse plants are. I was gonna say we saw in Ireland. We went to a botanical garden. We saw a lot of plant life there, and we saw like these plants that had these giant leaves, and we kept on joking that those were like corpse plants and like those plants could eat you alive and stuff. And so that's what I was picturing. It's not what I was picturing, but holy smokes. Look up corpse plants, or
It's
if we're able to
huge.
add the image in, those things are huge. Yeah, big
Yeah.
old suckers.
And the reason for the name is they smell like rotting flesh. So there's something for you if you didn't know. And like what a cool
Interesting.
thing to add to your fiction if you just change the name of it. Maybe it's like something that happens. And again, in Scavenger Rain, right? They come across a plant that it gives a display that seems like really prophetic in a way, and really. I don't want to give away too much, but it basically feels like they're seeing something very special. And it's like if they were there on the planet and they knew enough people and they could see it again, like there would be a ceremony around this. Like it's just a very important moment. And if you have a plant that only blooms every 40 years, like some people wouldn't even live long enough to see it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like this is a very special thing.
Yeah, and I really like, I like looking at the reason why. Like, why does it smell like a corpse plant? Because everything in nature has a reason. Whether it's the coloring, the smell in this instance, or whatever in nature. There's a reason why they look the way they do, and the reason for the odor. According to Discovery.com, is the odor is meant to mimic decomposition in order to attract its native pollinators, carrion beetles, and flesh flies, who are drawn to the smell of decaying meat. So just think how interesting that story would be, to have a flower that brings like these beetles and flies and smells like a rotting corpse. Like, what if no one goes down there because they assume people are dying down there, or every time someone goes down there, someone dies? I don't know. There's so many different ways you could add that into your story.
And it's like just from going from what exists to something like starting off there and going somewhere that doesn't exist, suddenly you're creating an entire ecosystem instead of I have this plant. Well, okay, you have that plant, but what does it eat? You start adding in all these things. It's like, oh, a beetle. I can replace a beetle with something else.
Yeah, exactly.
I can get a little creative sometimes on the weekends, maybe on holidays.
Yeah.
Pardon me. So, creepy looking plants that I found, I have added in. And I'll throw the photos up. So, anyway, doll's eye is real creepy looking.
All right.
I don't know what the actual plant name is. I forgot to type that in.
That does look creepy. It looks okay. So it looks like a plant with like some roots that like go out. It's not a very leafy plant. I think almost like
It's like a stick right down the middle. And
yeah,
then like
it's like a vine of grapes almost, but like not as viney as the grapes would be. That's one kind of solid piece. And where the grapes would be are these things that look like eyes.
yeah,
Just like little
doll eyeballs.
Yeah, little doll eyeballs. It's kind of creepy.
Doll balls. So, yeah, you just be walking through the forest and see that. Are you kidding? I don't know how big it is. The show. Oh, there it is.
Oh,
yeah.
It's
cool. Not too big.
No.
But I mean, you blow that up in size, and you make it realer looking eyeballs, and suddenly you've got a horror plant. You know what I mean? It's like we're so close.
Yeah.
We're so close with these.
And again, another interesting note, because I'm looking it up on Google as we're talking about it. Oh, the name is actually called white baneberry.
What a dope name for a plant.
Yeah, for real. And I guess part of the reason for baneberry is the entire plant is poisonous. So if you eat it or ingest it, it is toxic to humans.
Don't eat eyeballs. That's the takeaway, I think.
Yeah,
Anywhere you see them, just leave them be.
that's a good rule.
If they're looking at you, don't do it. Which moves us on to dried snapdragons. And if you haven't seen a dried snapdragon, like I had not, they look like a human skull.
Yes, they do.
Like pretty closely resemble it, which is kind of trippy. So anytime looking at those pictures, you could interchange them if it's just a thumbnail. It's very easy. So again, you're one step away from horror, and it's a real life plant.
So I added a fictional plant in towards the end of the episode here, and it was based off of snapdragons and using the little what do I call these, like the seeds, because it definitely looks like a skull with all the eyes and nose like falling out. So stay tuned so I can tell you, how we're using this in the world of Roween, because we wanted to add some of the plant elements into Roween as we continue to world build Roween.
Nice. Yeah. The examples are legion in stories where the plants eat people and you can see them inside it, or you can see their skull, or you plant something and a person-like thing is grown. That's even in Scavenger Rain. They go through all of them. I think any of the plant references you've ever had, I think they go through them in this show. It's super cool. Anyway, so even just having like a plant sting you and then like pus, like all that stuff. Watch it. Get grossed out in a fun way. Anyway, back to plants. Bleeding tooth. This one's my favorite because it is the grossest plant I've probably ever seen. It's called bleeding tooth because it looks like it's bleeding. It's one of the more creative names. I don't think that's its actual name, but I think that's what it's colloquially known as. It seeps poison through its pores. So I mean, it is nasty, and they Photoshop it into all kinds of things. It's one of those plants where it's just like it looks so gross that they just sort of superimpose it on people or on anything. It's like nothing you've seen before.
Just a word for the wise: don't look up bleeding tooth on Google because that was gross.
Yeah.
I guess look up bleeding tooth plant
and try to find the actual name, and then Google that.
Yeah, that was gross.
Yeah, bleeding tooth is a lot for Google.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's a white, fleshy sort of blob. It grows on tree roots, and it just seeps poison. I did not write down the reason, so you're gonna have to Google it again.
Oh, okay.
Bleeding tooth plant. We'll try it again.
Plant.
This is a lesson in keywords, folks. A lesson in keywords.
It took me straight to a webpage. What is the bleeding tooth fungus by gardenknowhow.com.
Ooh. Yeah. So white blobby growth on the bottom of a tree that seeps red blood-looking poison.
Bro, yeah.
What's that?
Bleeding tooth fungus mushrooms are so called because they have a tooth fungus, and the mushroom oozes a thick substance that looks like blood. In spite of the appearance, the fungus is not dangerous and in fact may have a host of health benefits.
Son of a bitch.
Oh my gosh.
So maybe you have some dangerous looking plants. I don't know.
Yeah, dangerous looking. Maybe it's dangerous looking so people don't, or things don't eat it, but it's good.
Maybe. All the good things are behind a barrier.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a weird way to put that. So, adding non-plant traits to plants. A lot of people add person traits to plants. They make them more human. They make them, like I said, walk around, talk, that sort of thing. Sentience is a popular one. But one that's not any of those things is the mandrake roots from Harry Potter.
Could you refresh me on what that is? Because I don't remember.
You remember the class where they're potting them?
Oh,
and they pull them up and they
yeah.
scream?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like they're not, I don't think they're canonically like sentient. Angry at me. I dare you. Okay. Anyway, so, but they look like people when they're young, and it's got a little crying face, and they scream, and so there is like they're potting them, so I don't think they're like able to take care of themselves. That'd be weird, right?
That the mandrakes could.
Maybe they're mandrakes in captivity.
Maybe
it was like mandrake slavery or something going on in Harry Potter.
Mandrake took me to the actual Wikipedia page.
Oh, nice.
Not
anyway.
the Harry Potter Wikipedia.
Anyway, mandrake is a fun one. But I just sort of have a random list here.
Yeah.
Myconids from D&D, fungus people, is another one. That is fun. And like I said, I ran a D&D campaign off of that. That was really good. It's just like everything that you could run into on the floor of a jungle or a forest. And if you take the new perspective when you're writing, like what's the smallest thing in the room and what's their life like, you can do a whole lot of fun world building. And I've found that some of my best details come that way, which maybe is not the best, most straightforward route, but if I have time, I'll definitely do that, where I can just sort of hop around the room and see what things are made of, where they come from, and all that stuff. Makes for fun world building. So another fictional example of sentient plants. Another one? The first one. Another one, myconids, right? Is Groot, who I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Is not super sentient because all he says is "I am Groot," but I think the light's on, but nobody's home. Is that the thing with Groot? I'm just kidding.
Oh my gosh. I was like, no, totally not at all. Yeah, you haven't seen the last one, have you? The last with
Yes.
Guardians. You did?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm just trying to upset people out there.
Good.
Trying to get that viewership up by being controversial. It's cheap, but I'm trying it.
Yeah. I definitely think I am Groot. All right, Groot. That sentient plant. I think when you look at sentient plants, what are some of the sentient plants that pop out to your mind? Groot is a good example.
It's almost always trees. I feel like the Ents from Lord of the Rings.
That's what I was
right?
going to say next.
Yeah.
The Ents from Lord of the Rings, and just their whole process of like taking a lot longer to talk and things like that. I talked about the Aragon series multiple times throughout our podcast this year, and I just finished it up.
Congratulations.
Between the month of October, I finished 2 books, the last 2 books. So there's a moment where there is a tree that starts to talk or interact with our main characters, and it was very interesting to hear and see the point of view of the tree, because it has sentience, but it never like got up and started walking or anything like that. It was still just the tree, the forest, and it was like this ominous feeling, and a very dangerous encounter is what it ended up being. Because if you think about sentient plants, like you hear how some plants and trees or roots or whatever spread out through like the entirety of a forest, and it's almost like this superstructure of communication that's happening. So if something's happening to a tree, like what is the reaction, especially in a fantasy element, what is the reaction of the trees? And so in this case, the trees decided to start fighting back. And how do you fight a forest like that? When you start thinking about it like that, what is your main character going to do against the forest, against the trees? Like, that is a very scary situation to be, just thinking about being in a forest and how many trees are around you and how much age is there. Each tree, if you go into an older forest, you're talking about 60 plus 70, 80, 100, 200, thousands of years of experience for each tree, and then they all start to come at you. Scary.
I saw a nature show that said plants, when they're connected by a fungus, like you're talking about the network, that they react. If there's a fire on the other side of the forest, that they'll move away from the forest, or like, you know what I mean? Just do stuff to keep themselves from being burnt, which is so weird. I obviously wasn't paying attention to the details of that, but
it's a lot.
Yeah, but it's cool. I mean, like I said, that's a real thing. That's a real thing.
I was looking up some plant life in D&D Beyond, as I like to do, and corpse flower is one of the monsters in D&D Beyond. Pretty wild, huh? So there we go. Someone already used the corpse flower for in their D&D game at some point. So kind of wild there.
See.
So now that we've been talking about a lot of these plants, and we've gone through, what these plants are and stuff like that. How are we going to start using them in our world?
We're getting to the good part, y'all.
Yes. You heard us babble for the last 30 minutes through this, but
It was a little bit babbly.
a little bit.
That's on me.
We're back, baby.
We're back. Hey, it's not all gold, but it is here.
Yes, it is. And so now, as we start talking about how do we use these in our world? What's the function of all of these plants that we've talked about now?
Well, there's like the main function that I feel like people don't incorporate into their stories much, especially like I've been reading so much science fiction this year. Nobody really works into their science fiction is they create breathable atmosphere, which just means that they create gas, right? They
literally create breathable atmosphere for us.
Yeah, and that's a huge purpose. I mean, that's like the only reason we're here. I mean, there's 10,000 others, but in terms of plants, that's the only reason we're here, right?
Yeah.
And the fact that we eat them. So there's energy that we get from them. They make our shelters. They just keep us going.
Yeah.
We use them for like fires and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Which, is a broken down element of plants. So I don't know, like energy.
Yeah.
Can you think of any others?
No, I mean, when you said breathable atmosphere, I was like, oh yeah, for your storytelling, you create like the atmosphere through plant life and fauna, and you create kind of like the aura or the vibe that you're going into.
That's a good one too, though. I mean, visually, yeah, they are very striking, and in different parts of the world, you have way different plants.
Yeah.
And it's like if you're in Asia, you're in Asia. Just look around at the plants. If you're in the jungle, you're in the jungle.
Yeah.
The only way you know that is the plants. If you're in Texas and you don't see plants, you're in Texas.
You see trees that you can look over. Yeah.
If you can smell cedar, you made it.
Right. So yeah, I mean, I think the function of plants is one that we have to use them to live, but also as a storyteller, as a creative, how do you use your plants? I think for me, using it to create that aura, to create that vibe is really cool. But also, we run a D&D game. And so I've created just a handful of plants. And then I was telling Henry earlier when we were doing our research for the podcast that I long ago backed a Kickstarter where someone made a whole primer of plants, and they used real world plants and also kind of fantasy plants, and put them together and created not a system, but it created descriptions for them. So you can tell you like where to find the plants, what kind of atmosphere or region they're going to be in, what do the seeds look like, what are their effects, what's the lore behind it, what's
medicinal properties.
Yeah, the medicinal properties, and then what's their magical properties if they had any. And I thought that was really interesting because it doesn't create it into any specific system. And it's called the Herbalist Primer on Exalted something. I'll look it up later. But
put it in the comments.
Yeah. I'll shout out to them in the comments. But Herbalist Primer, it's not very expensive. I got the PDF for $20. But it can help create the world feel more alive, right? The whole purpose for us as storytellers is to make the world feel vibrant in almost every aspect that we can. So when we do start describing, whether to our readers or our audience or our RPG group, TTRPG group, that when we're describing the plant life and our player inevitably is like, what's this? I want to check this out. Like you have something as a either writer or game master or whatever. So it's a very valuable tool. And then there are also a couple. I gotta again look up. There are D&D Instagram influencers or whatever who post just random topics like 6 things for this or 10 hidden or what do you call it, rogues like how
hidden abilities,
like how their language, their secret code.
Thieves
can't.
There you go.
So they have 10
I nailed that.
10 thieves can't phrases or whatever, and so one of them are like books and plants, and so I just looked through them, and I've created a couple of plants in my game based off of those and based off of the herbalist primer, just to make the game feel a little bit more vibrant and the storytelling feel a little bit more vibrant. And then you can also just look stuff up based off of what we just did here. I also looked up list of fantasy plants, and you get a handful. You get some from uh, uh, on Wikipedia right away.
Like
It
Harry
brings
Potter
up
and
it brings up Harry
Lord of the
Potter. It
Rings.
brings up Middle Earth. It brings up D&D, Avatar, video games, mythology. So like, there's a host of things that you can use for your writing, and of course, take, change, and make your own, and not just straight copy from these people. But there's a lot of things here that can really create a lot of inspiration to add into your story.
Yeah, I think one of the books I just finished reading is Fractal Noise by Christopher Paolini, and he did a good job on the homeworld of one of the characters. To not give anything away, basically, the local plant life and wildlife was very oppressive, and so there was a lot of varieties of it, and it was all sort of like aggressively growing plants and animals that are, don't sleep a lot and they eat a ton, right? Just that kind of stuff where your character feels like they're being followed by the forest. Because I've read stories in the past that the party is going through a jungle or a forest, because we have this fascination with trees, I'm noticing, as people, and there is no relief when they leave the forest. To me as the reader, and I've sort of wondered why that is. And as I've read more and more books, I feel like the people who do it well have a lot of varieties of plants that feel very close, and it's always like they're, every time they sit down, they're like, oh, this plant, it inched over like 3 or 4 inches,
Yeah.
and this is the kind of plant, this is what it looks like. They've got the whole lore, and whether it's, somebody in the party gets poisoned by it or whatever, it always performs a really interesting function in the story. And then when they get out, you feel such relief because you're not looking around and seeing all this wildlife. It's just, whoa, oppressive. Claustrophobic is the word I'm looking for.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, and super scary. I think, again, in Ireland, when we were walking around in some of the places, I was like, oh man, this is scary, because like, you literally don't know and can't really hear much of like what's outside your very close perimeter. So now, like, things in games like keeping watch, like, oh, that makes sense now that you're in an area where it's complete darkness, or you just have the light from the moon and the stars, and you can't hear or see anything out, and a fire would be like a big visual, like in the Fellowship of the Rings, the fire on top of the rock where the Nazgul show up. Like, why was that so important? Why did Frodo freak out about the fire? Well, because he knew that this was creating a light, a signal to the enemies that they were where exactly they were at. But again, bringing it back to that forest idea, is forests are scary, man. You go in there. I think I was at a ballpark as a kid and went into like a forest, and I was in a completely safe space as an adult, knowing that now. But as a kid, I was like, I got turned around. I was lost, and like, civilization was around me, but I was just in like a little clump of trees. So it was definitely a sigh of relief once I got out and I saw the same ballpark that I was supposed to be going to.
Somebody told me something the other day that reminds me of, was that they were writing a story, and I don't know if they want me to mention their name, so I'm not, but that they're writing a story, and their frustration with the stories that they're looking to for inspiration is that they have a physical representation of the darkness, right? And they said that it's weird that they personify it, because the darkness isn't something, it's the absence of something.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'd never heard it put that way before. And I was like, that's so cool in terms of like talking about or like describing a forest to somebody, if you're writing fiction or whatever, describing it to somebody as the absence of light, as the, it's the absence of comfort, it's the absence of free space, it's the absence of so many things. It's the absence of safety, like you're saying. Yeah. And that makes for, I mean, already it's like I have such a cool mental image. I wish I could describe it in a good way, but that's how it's given me a much more vivid image than I had before, just from that statement he said. And I thought, wow, that's so cool.
It is quite.
I try
quite
to
cool.
try to think of that next time I create something.
Yeah.
So let's get into Roween. Wait a second. We just got back.
Yes.
That means we got to do inspiration.
Yes, sir.
Oh, buddy. What you got, Michael?
Oh, okay.
I switched the camera to you already. I
Yeah,
was like,
yeah.
it's gonna be him.
Okay. So obviously I could keep on talking about Aragon, so I'm not going to talk about it. Also because my wife who listens, I don't want to spoil anything, but I took a lot of inspiration from the end of Aragon, and we talked about it a little bit too. But that was a very, very interesting and fun book, and as soon as I finished, I was like, I'm ready to start it again, which is a sign of a good book that you want to read it again. But that's not what I'm bringing to the table this week. What I'm bringing to the table is also the finale of something else that I've been watching over the years, and that is Attack on Titan. And that it was a dope finale. That was the end of it. How they ended it was really interesting. I had spoilers from the manga already, so I knew how it was going to end. But some of the changes they made to the ending just made it even that much more sweet. Some of the callbacks that they had from the last episode to the very first episode were very interesting, and the action in it was dope. And that's the reason why everyone started watching Attack on Titan in the first place, was to see the people in their ODM gear and move around and be badasses. And so that was really fun to watch, and to see two chapters that I've been putting countless hours in. I was talking to my wife about it. I spent, for the Aragon book, I read them as a young adult in my teens, and now finishing them again. That's, on Audible, that was about 85, 90 hours.
Dang.
Plus reading them as a kid. So I've poured in, somewhere close to, if we just double that, 160 hours into those 4 books. And then same thing with Attack on Titan. I've watched it twice now, leading into the finale. And so just the wrap up of both of those shows and both of those stories and how it ended was very inspiring to me, to see stuff come to a close. Because there are shows like was it One Piece that has like 1,000 something episodes and it's still going, which is great. No knock on One Piece, but there's also something about hearing the words "the end" and seeing the title screen saying "the end." Like, this is the end of the chapter. This is how you wrap up and make it a conclusion to the story that you're telling, which is also something that I'm thinking about. As our D&D group is at level 14, 15, and end of the world stuff is happening, and all these crazy things. Is how do you wrap this up in a convincing way that makes everyone feel happy with how it ended? And so it inspired me for a couple of ideas on what to be doing next.
It's really hard to end a story gracefully, I feel like.
It is, yeah.
I feel like Breaking Bad did that well. I feel like the Ozarks did that well. I'm more TV, I guess. But
yeah.
But yeah, The Walking Dead, I would say, did not, because
it's still going.
It's still going.
Going with their side characters and everything.
Gosh, yeah, it's the side characters by now. It's just wild. I don't know.
Yeah. We'll move away from that.
Sorry, The Walking Dead. A lot of good people work on that show, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, but
at least one.
But it was interesting to see the finale and the conclusion of those stories. So that's what's been inspiring me. Again, I definitely recommend, if you're someone who's a fantasy lover, I would definitely check out Aragon. If you like dragons, check it out. It's an interesting spin on that. I know one of our future episodes is going to be talking about incorporating dragons into your world, and we'll talk a little bit more about having Aragon and what they did with the dragons. So stay tuned for that later in December, November-ish time. And where was I going? Oh, it was just, it was very inspiring. Definitely recommend. 10 out of 10 recommend reading it and listening to it, because it created a lot of good story elements and ways to continue to hook your players and fun magic items and fun ways to do magic. And the next campaign I'm planning on running for D&D, I'm planning on being a little bit more loose with the magic and having it being a little bit more soft magic. And it's given me some ideas on how to do that through reading Aragon. So
Nice.
And what has
that is a
been-
good inspiration.
what has been inspiring you these last month and a half?
My dad always tells me that the best things in life, I'm paraphrasing, but the best things in life are small and consistent. And I was listening to Spotify. I just got bored of I usually shuffle through like 6 different bands. Wherever I'm at in life, I'm just shuffling through 6 different bands.
Yeah.
And I got bored with it, and I was like, I know Spotify has the lists of what I listened to 2 years ago. So I just went back.
Yeah.
It was like, what are my top songs from 2021? And then it brought up a list, and then I found an album on there. It's called The Mighty by Of a Revolution, or OAR. And it's one of my favorite albums by them. And I always listen to it when I'm flying. I have it downloaded for any time I am on a plane, or if I'm going to be in a car for a really long time, whatever. For some reason, it just really mellows me out. Like, I just listen to it, and I'm just on cloud 9 for a while.
Yeah.
But I bring up the consistency thing because I've done that ever since it came out. Almost all the trips I've been on.
Yeah.
And because I've done that, when it came on again, I was like just remembering all of these really pleasant travel memories coming
That's cool.
back. And I don't have a great memory, so anytime I have something where it helps me remember things in my life, it's like, it's just so nice.
Yeah.
So it's just one of those things. If you stay consistent with something, especially music, we've talked about it many times before, where if you listen to the same music when you're creating the same story, if you just have like a 5-hour playlist anytime you work, I mean, that kind of stuff is really useful because it just drops your brain right in.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it was very pleasant, and I'm still thinking about that. I'm not quite through with the thought yet. I'm not sure why. Maybe because it was so pleasant, I don't want to let it go. But there's something there that I feel like I haven't quite learned yet.
Well, music, I feel like, music holds and sets in stone memories that you have, right? So when you hear that same music, it brings you back to the first time that you heard that song, or the first time that song made an impression on you. Like, there are certain songs that I hear and I listen to it takes me back to different spots of my life. Even I don't even say just music, but even words and audiobooks. There are podcasts. There's a D&D podcast that I listen to that I remember when it hooked me. I was stalking our paper towel aisle, and then, different songs and different music. It brings me back to a certain time, and it can help me get into the headspace of other things. So I think music definitely can hold memories, and I'm a firm believer in that.
Yeah, nice. Well, that's what's been inspiring us this week. I hope there's something that is inspiring you, and I would love to hear it. Just shoot me a message on Instagram or wherever else. It don't matter. Get a hold of us. We love to talk.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. All right. Bringing us back to our little city of Roween, our city set in the jungle. In the jungle, we got plenty of plants here. We're not going to talk about a whole lot of them because we've talked about a lot of plants. We've talked about a lot of resources that you can check out on your own. But you know what? Right now, we're going to give you at least two examples here of some plants that we came up with and how we're going to incorporate them in the world of Roween, so you can see how you can incorporate plants into your story. Starting us off, Henry.
Nice. I see what you did there. You kicked it right back to me before I could kick it to you. So I went through the system how I mentioned earlier. I just picked a type of plant and I started there. And I think the word fungus is fun to say, so this is going to be a fungus.
Cool.
And then I looked up a bunch of names for actual funguses, and it's like what are they normally, and what sounds cool. I think they have something called a death cap, and then there's an ink cap and all kinds of fun mushroom names. Anyway, so the name for the fungus I came up with was blistering ears, because there are ear-shaped mushrooms in the world, and I thought how, you couldn't get anything grosser than the nice ear-shaped fungus if you're picking things,
Yeah.
That's got to be tactilely terrible. Anyway, so I'll just read the paragraph I have written down. They're shaped like ears and golden in sheen. These mushrooms will cause a nasty blistering rash to sprout on the skin of anyone who touches it. The worst version of this is when the secretions touch the eyeball. So, if it gets itchy and you rub your eye after you've touched one of these, then you're going to get just as much of a blistery rash, but on the eyeball, which just sounds horrible. However, when handled with care and the use of special gloves, blistering ears can be fermented into a highly alcoholic wine that Roweenians love. And if you haven't looked into mushrooms lately, they found a mushroom that they are trying to make into wine. They're fermenting it and trying to make mushroom alcohol these days.
Cool.
So, fun fact there. The rash has become lovingly referred to as God's fare. Fare in this case referring to payment. Referring to the price they pay for having visions of the beyond in their drunken stupor. So
that's cool.
So there's also a component of, maybe a little bit of hallucinations that come with this. And there is also sort of a loving term that has been applied to this mushroom because they like getting drunk.
Yeah.
They just love it.
I feel like there's a cool a cool way that you can twist this to where it's the wine that they drink in celebration for whatever event. So it's like there's a harvesting of this, and you don't just normally drink what did you call it, God's Fare. God's Fare is the wine or the blister?
God's Fare is the blister.
Okay.
But blistering ears is the
is the name of the fungus. But like, you normally don't drink this wine. This isn't a
what about
everyday
blister beer?
Blister beer? Blister wine? Blistering wine?
That doesn't sound as good, does it?
Yeah,
we'll come up with a name for the wine. Anyway, we'll market it later.
Yeah. So whatever this isn't like a sip after work. This is for a celebration. You're bringing out the good stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Fall festival. Let's get smashed.
Yeah. It's an occasion, or even, like the coming of age ceremonies and stuff that we've been talking about, or whatever holiday that we want to celebrate in Roween, like a holiday for the harvest. All right.
Ooh, the coming of age ceremony for the kids is like the first time they get to drink it.
Yeah, that would be cool. And like, you have these visions, and it's the first time you get drunk, and it's the kids have just a glass and they're drunk already or whatever, and then the adults are like, now we get to enjoy it. Or what if it's just highly valued, so you only can have a certain amount of it, and I don't know, there's a bunch of cool ways that you can world build it to work for the story. But I do like it's for an event, for a holiday, and then that still makes your world feel a little bit better when you're talking about, we drink blistering wine on this holiday for this celebration of nature or whatever.
Ooh, and the cult eats it raw.
Yeah, the cult, they just eat raw ears.
Ugh.
So
I love it.
Yeah,
I love it.
Cool ideas that stem off of this blistering wine, or the fungus blistering ear.
The fungus among us.
The fungus among us.
What you got for yo's?
So I took inspiration as well from Snapdragon, and I used, again, partially the Herbalist Primer for some of the technical stuff, but then I will kind of rephrase it on how I would use it for like a D&D 5e game. So for Snapdragon, look it up. Again, we talk about the seeds looking like this kind of cool skull. So it has like some dark red and yellow leaves. The dried seeds look like melted skulls. This plant, now we're getting to the lore of Roween. This plant is found near the cave where they go into, where the dead god's essence is, for the coming of age ceremony. The NPC that lives there, Zira, is is the one who harvests the plant. She knows about it. She stays there. This is probably one of the only places that the plant grows. The plant, instead of just calling it Snapdragon, we're going to go fantasy with it. Went to fantasy name generator, came up with a different name. So we're calling it Ixoil, Ixoil, but Zira calls it the naughty wheat.
Oh.
So she calls it naughty wheat.
Love to hear why.
Because when we'll get there.
Zira's a hottie all of a sudden.
So Zira calls the plant naughty wheat. Medicinally, the leaves of the Ixoil mixed into a salve, and this is interesting because we came up with these two like effects for our plants separately. Can treat the skin that is inflamed or reddened.
Oh my god. That's so funny.
Yeah. So completely different. Like, geologically, we'll put them in different spots. But so it's all around. It's a plant that can ease. So this is like an all-around great plant. This is your fantasy plant that can do everything. It can help ease pain or relieve small pain. So it can help with heartburn, mouth ulcers, and it's apparently good for the liver, as well as a mild stimulant. So, there are some other beneficial, like it's not going to heal a hand being cut off, but it will heal, depending on how bad the rash is for the blistering ear. Maybe that's like, what you go and seek to heal this rash if it's not in a good spot or like in your eyes or whatever. So that's the medical properties of it. And then the magical properties, and this is why Zira calls it naughty wheat, is when it's worn or attached to clothes, the plant prevents people from lying to you by withering in the presence of a lie or malicious intent. So I was like, that's really cool. So she values this so that people can't lie to her. And as people do, she knows. So she can always tell. She's kind of like, again, talking about D&D 5e. She's almost always in this kind of zone of truth where if people mean ill intention to her, like she has the heads up. And if people are trying to lie to her, she knows. And how she plays that is a very interesting way on how to interact with this NPC.
Yeah, that's super cool.
Yeah.
Maybe that's just an effect that she knows. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah. No, it's not a common effect. This is just, if you give this, plant to your players or whatever, or in the story, withering plants is just going to be something that you describe, not why.
Yeah.
And then the seeds, we talked about these skull seeds. What if she has a necklace around and the seeds prevent, where is it? Seeds around your neck. It prevents any type of mind control if you have a necklace of seeds around you. So here we can start creating a little bit more lore of Ixoil. People want these seed necklaces around their kids, right? Because there's already these kind of weird, ominous, like kids getting kidnapped into the goo. We talked about that in one of our Roween episodes. What if there's a little bit of a fae presence in the jungle and a parent swears that this necklace is what prevented them from getting kidnapped by the fae? And so I just thought that was an interesting, extra to add. So now people want these seeds, but it's so rare that to have a necklace like this is very valuable, and it's just plant seeds, and maybe it wears off after it withers and dies.
It degrades or something like that with each one.
Yeah. So, pretty, however you want to run that in your game, it's a fun, interesting way. And that's just, two plants that we had that creates a little bit more lore to the world. So yeah, that was all I had for Ixoil. And then, again, it could be a quest. It could be a fetch quest. You need to go. It's all the Ixoil outside of the cave has been harvested. That she knows of a spot inside, but there's a creature in there that, the creature that we've said that's in there is guarding it. So you have to go through and either kill the creature or whatever. It's some type of fetch quest,
Yeah, that's super cool. I really like that.
Yeah.
There's so much there. My brain's sort of going crazy.
Yeah.
But that's the point, right? I mean, that's the point. Is we're trying to make things that explode the world, right? That's what exponential creation, exponential creation is all about.
Yeah.
Is choosing things that are really dense, because that gives you so many good questions, and suddenly you got a whole world built around it. So thank you for sharing. That was dope.
Yeah. Again, I took some of the properties from the Herbalist Primer, but I gave the lore. That was our own lore that we created. So that's where I said you take some and you twist it and you make it your own into your game. And definitely check out that Herbalist Primer. And I had it open, so let me go and check and see if they credit where it's from on this first page. By Anna
Urbanic.
And
Or Urbanic or something. Who knows?
Yeah.
Good job, Anna.
I was trying to look for the website that I got it from. But Herbalist Primer.
www.doubleproficiency.com.
There we go. So
Heyo.
check it out. It's definitely a good find that I'm going to continue to incorporate in my world and in my D&D games and in my storytelling.
Sweet. I think that was a freaking awesome episode for a first one back.
Yeah, for
After
sure.
a month off. Are you kidding? You guys missed us? You know you did.
Yes.
You know you did. We missed you.
And then let me make sure and look at our schedule, but I'm pretty sure we're also going to be off next week. Yeah, next week is going to be Thanksgiving week. So we're going to be taking that week off, but we're still going to be working hard trying to get episodes out. But there will be no episode next week. So enjoy time with your families, friends, Friendsgiving, Thanksgiving, whatever you want to be doing. Just be safe out there. And if you have any creative thoughts, any creative discussions with your fam, and you want to shoot them over our way for us to talk about, definitely shoot them our way. We're always looking for other things to talk about because we are two brains. And while we do have a great exponential process, we continue to want to hear what you guys want to talk about or want us to talk about. I know we've had time travel in the books, but man, do we need research on that? And we want to give it the absolute best credit that we can give it. So that is an episode that we will be having probably at some point next year, but that is one we're excited for, and we're taking very, very good care to make sure that whenever we do that episode, it is going to be a great one. But that's the detail that's the attention and care that we want to treat that topic with. So if you have any other topics that you want us to talk about, definitely let us know, and definitely let us know like maybe 2 points that you want us to hit on, because sometimes we hear a topic and we go off on our own, and then the person who was like shouted out the topic was like, "Oh, well, you guys didn't talk about this." I was like, "Well, oops."
I got excited and I ran away.
Yeah. So we love to hear from you guys, and thank you guys so much for listening to our first episode back, and thank you for your patience.
And just a quick tip for when you're home for the holidays: if you're having pumpkin pie, look at it and see how you can make it fit your work. What kind of plant would that be in your world?
Nice. I like it.
How would you be making pie?
Solid.
Thank y'all for listening. Take care. Bye-bye.